Coal smoke spreads throughout the sky, and steam roars incessantly. The world operates as usual, and prosperity is within reach. But everyone is ignorant. Only a very small number of them, through the fog of history, study taboo knowledge, unravel hidden inspirations, and use intangible powers. They are known as wise people. The chaos and reality beneath the filthy surface of the world, starting from a mysterious concert event, gradually becomes apparent. The extraordinary path of the wise is to have hidden knowledge, shifting and surging, phase, ritual vessels, and witnesses, inspiration, composition, piano, conductor, symphonic movements. This is the sacred career of an artist. Two roads lead to the same goal. The vision is reached, the destiny is chosen. The world is full of regrets, but eventually someone will witness the light firsthand. Contemporary composer, pianist, and conductor Caroline van Nistelrooy. Keywords of the novel. No pop-ups for old musicians. Download the complete collection of Old Musicians TXT, and read the latest chapters for old musicians. Chapter 1. Concert. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Concert. I slept soundly this night, so heavy, so confused. Fan Ning woke up leisurely from the audience seat, his head tilted to one side, almost parallel to his shoulder. A typical poor posture after falling asleep in a sitting position. The environment is exceptionally quiet, with a slightly faster heartbeat than usual, and one can hear its sound. My neck is like a cement seal, and every moment I lift it up, it hurts like death. It took Fan Ning quite some time to lift her head and slowly open her eyes. The field of vision is dim and blurry. I could barely see the stage facing me in front by a few faint green light sources in the distance. There is also a row of flowers and potted plants at the front of the stage, a few chairs and music stands inside, and a grand piano in the middle. The black outline of the object is shrouded in a faint green hue. Fan Ning finally came to his senses. Isn't it? Did no one wake me up even after the performance ended? Did the concert hall just end like this and turn off the lights? Are the staff here not cleaning and inspecting? Fan Ning is a recent graduate of the Science and Engineering Society, as well as a deep fan of classical music. I have loved playing the piano since I was young, listening to records or concerts, and researching various composers and music theories. This attribute, as long as the appearance is not bad and the emotional intelligence is online, it is easy to attract a group of like-minded and fans during the campus period, and experience a relatively rich emotional life. Various titles similar to Great Gods were added to him, and his shining moments in clubs or cultural activities made him feel that he was not an ordinary person. Until he began to be beaten by society. Chemical enterprises in the urban-rural fringe, laboratory bricklaying, awkward salaries, workplace disruptions, landlord pressure. In just a few months, with all the necessary elements, everything is inevitably moving towards vulgarity. Fortunately, there is this spiritual comfort. For example, tonight, with a 996 work interval, a 2-hour drive to the city center, and a Bach chamber music concert. Fan Ning's memory of the last second was fragmented while listening to the performance. In the dimly lit music hall, his vision gradually adapted and his physical weakness slightly eased. I never felt sleepy before. Can I fall asleep while listening to music? It doesn't exist. Doubts returned to doubts, and he stood up, ready to take out his phone to see what time it was. Sigh, we have to continue moving bricks tomorrow. After feeling around for a while, the feel of the clothes seemed unfamiliar, but I still touched my phone. No signal, 1% battery, 23.30, it's been a long time since the end of the concert at 10 o'clock. A pile of DingTalk work news shows that the boss still remembers the crazy gank employees on the 996th day off. But the top one is, SMS. To the audience of this world, recreate the music in your memory. As fast as possible, as much as possible. If you want to survive, 0 out of 100, the time is 21.30, and the number is a string of garbled characters. What situation? What does it mean? This receipt time is in the second half of the concert, perhaps it's still when I cut myself off. Fanning looked around the concert hall in confusion, increasingly feeling that something was wrong. Although the walls in the distance cannot be seen clearly, this concert hall is much smaller than I remember, with no more than 100 seats for the audience. The dim green light source is not a safety passage sign, but rather emitted from a few dimly visible lights at a height on the wall. Fan Ning swiped down the control panel of the phone and turned on the flash. Most naturally, he shone towards the stage first. In this photo, he was so scared that his entire heart seemed to be swung hard by a heavy hammer. Two white figures jumped out under the flash. No, to be precise, it's just two humanoid contours on the stage plane, contorted by indescribable light smoky marks that outline the head, torso, and limbs, then radiating and spreading. Just like being dissolved, burned down, or evaporated by something unknown. The phone runs out of battery, automatically shuts down, and the view returns to dim. Fanning's back was instantly covered in cold sweat. Is this the musician from the previous stage? He felt as if he instinctively shouted out and then stepped back a few more steps. But in reality, my throat was hoarse and I didn't move in place. It wasn't until I almost couldn't feel the presence of my body that I gathered the courage to step out of my legs. He dared not turn around, let alone run, but stepped back step by step, stepped off the stage, stepped back to the wall, stepped back to a corridor-like junction, turned around and plunged into the darkness. At the end of the darkness, after a chaotic grope, I finally touched something similar to a gate and pushed it open. The strong light shone into his eyes. It's not the sunlight from the outside, but the flashlights in the hands of a few people outside the door. Police, stop and calm down. Amidst the dazzling discomfort, Fanning's vision was intermittent and blurry. He first saw the black uniforms with 3 rows of buttons, then the khaki tassel epaulets and sleeve decorations, and finally saw the red and white plaid wide-brimmed hats on their heads, and the solemn expression beneath them. Fan Ning was stunned, not only because of their attire and appearance, but also because of what they said. He has never heard this language before and is now quickly becoming familiar with it at a strange speed. This sentence was like a huge spoon, stirring fiercely in his mind, causing something to shatter and bringing out a pile of chaotic memory fragments. This is Ufrancer in the year 912 of the Gregorian calendar, the second largest industrial city of the Tyrolean Empire. Caroline van Ning is a fourth-year student majoring in music at the University of Sant'Elenia. My father was once a well-known folk artist in this city and the director of the Turner Art Museum. He lost contact 3 years ago and has been missing since then. My mother passed away years ago. In this era, there is no longer a feudal strict hierarchy, but social classes still have different levels of respect and inferiority. The upper-class resources belong to the nobility, scholars, big factory owners, as well as the extraordinary group of mysterious and rumored individuals with transcendent status. The wise. It is difficult to reach the threshold of this imperial aristocratic public school due to one's own middle-class background. But my father's identity as an artist seems to have a great impact in this world. Of course, as soon as he disappeared, his status in school quickly changed from pedestrian level to sewer level. If it weren't for the high tuition fees of having sex for 4 years at once when I enrolled, I could have been kicked out now. The operation of art museums is also difficult to sustain. At first, I sold some of my father's paintings for debt settlement, equipment maintenance, and personnel salaries. Later on, the personnel had to be disbanded, the building closed down, and they were frugal, living alone in a small apartment building. Have you traveled yourself? Fan Ning's head was throbbing one after another, and the chaotic and complex fragments of memory crowded and pushed each other, gradually turning into restless screams and babbling in his ears. I changed from standing to squatting, from squatting to lying down, and the figures of the police officers in my sight became increasingly blurred. Opening his eyes again, Fan Ning saw the ceiling. Also, why is this thing still in front of me? Last line of SMS. 0 out of 100, the faint pale golden color made Fanning suspect that he was blinded. It seems that when one has this idea, it becomes more noticeable, and the shift of attention fades to almost transparency. Wake up. Mr. Caroline Vanning. If you're still in good spirits, please get up first. A very close voice interrupted my thoughts. This is Hoffman language, the official language of the Tyrian Empire, spoken by the largest proportion of Hoffman people. Fan Ning stood up and sat on the edge of the hard-board bed. A small room with grey walls on all sides and 2 mahogany tables. The pale light of the carbonized lamp hit the only pen and paper on the table and a vertically patterned glass cup. The water in the cup reflects cold light. There are 2 police officers sitting opposite, dressed in straight clothes, with a burly figure and a serious face. One of them unscrewed his pen cap and said, "Let me introduce myself, Newman Ellens, Senior Superintendent of the Ufrancer Police Security Department, responsible for security work in the Nalinia neighborhood. I slept all night. Also, is this asking me questions?" Fan Ning, who had just crossed the river, felt a little flustered in his heart. He is not sure if the human figures on stage are a prank or an abnormal death of a living person, nor is he sure if he is an innocent party or the initiator. Calm down, at least from the original owner's relatively complete memory, this matter was not done by him, and there is no need to hide anything. Let's answer truthfully first. Fanning calmed down and said, "Okay, Officer Ellens." The police officer took out an item from the drawer and placed it on the table. "First, explain what this is." Fan Ning looked at his shiny touchscreen phone and rechecked the original owner's memory of this world. Then the forehead and vest began to sweat. In this steam industry world similar to the Victorian era, it's not easy for me to explain to you, you know. I said this is the latest flashlight in the Empire, do you believe it? No, there's no one who crosses over just as soon as they cross over. Internally invested works, please rest assured to invest, P.S. not a systematic article, end of this chapter. Chapter 2. Origins of Events. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Origins of Events. Well, this is actually a mobile lighting device. As you all know, the flashlight invented by the Empire in recent years is too heavy, unstable in brightness, and too short in duration. Out of curiosity, I bought a new patent sample promoted by someone claiming to be an inventor, but soon it became a piece of scrap metal. I should have been deceived by scammers. In the unsettling gazes of the 2 police officers, Fan Ning tried to maintain his serious tone as much as possible. As for whether you believe it or not, I believe it anyway. Fortunately, before attending the concert, I put my backpack in the storage cabinet and only carried my phone with me, otherwise a story wouldn't be enough. There are indeed many strange inventions these days. The other person's expression showed little emotion. We need to keep it for now to investigate its relevance to the case, is there no problem? Please do as you please, officer, this is just a scam. Fan Ning waved his hand nonchalantly. However, my heart was very depressed, as the only item I had traveled with me was taken away at the beginning. Fortunately, there is no power or signal, and even if they can find a way to turn it on, they cannot understand the language, and they are even more unwilling to admit it. The key information has been read and seems to be of no use, so it can be considered harmless. Tell me about last night's incident. What do I need to say? Starting from the starting point where you think it's necessary, you know, experienced, and related to last night. Okay, officer. Fan Ning struggled to organize his thoughts and spoke slowly. My professional teacher, Anton Cornell, a music professor and composer, was obsessed with studying ancient music before the Gregorian period in the later part of his artistic career. About a few months ago, teacher Anton obtained a stack of phonetic fragments at an antique auction. Simply put, it was a piece of paper with a sequence of musical notes written on it. He then began his research on forgetting to eat and sleep. As his closest student, I often went to his house to participate in small gatherings and discussions. Last night was Friday, and the class had a regular open class in the school teaching hall, discussing some chamber music creation techniques. Under the guidance of teacher Anton, I played the piano, and a few violinists gave some demonstrations. The audience was about 20.30 people, all of whom were students. As usual, teacher Anton carried research materials during class, but the response was mediocre, and some even left early. As we approached the end, 2 students showed interest in ancient music materials and had some communication with me on stage. We took turns playing and then took turns listening to the effects offline, giving feedback to the performers. At this moment, Fanning's mind came to mind with the outlines of 2 figures under the flashing light. The others gradually dispersed, and it seemed that teacher Anton was also a bit hasty. He left without saying anything more to me. From the time I sat in the front row of the audience for a trial, my memories were fragmented. Then I woke up from the darkness and saw a scene that the police officer must have known. In the end, I was afraid and ran out of the chamber music hall. Fanning basically answered truthfully according to memory, except for things related to time travel. Tell me about the last time we attended a discussion gathering at the professor's house, Inspector Ellens continued. This Thursday afternoon, in addition to me and the teacher, there were 2 people named. Fanning's head was throbbing again, Vulcan Harvey, Nora Carl, these 2 people. Inspector Ellens spoke calmly and continued. Vulcan Harvey, male, a third-year student majoring in piano at the University of Santa Linia, was found dead in the school piano room yesterday morning. The body was twisted and folded inside the small triangular piano, and the direct cause of death was suffocation. It is unclear how the deceased entered, and no signs of others' activity were found during on-site investigation. Nora Carr, female, a third-year student majoring in literature at the University of Santa Linia, was found dead in a solitary apartment last night. The body's eyes, nose, and mouth were densely stitched with needles and thread, and the direct cause of death was suffocation. The on-site investigation showed that the act was carried out by the deceased himself, and no signs of others' activities were found. Fan Ming broke out in a cold sweat upon hearing it. As a high-risk social animal in the chemical industry, he feels that he has heard of and seen some big scenes. But these methods of death, as well as the scene I saw yesterday, he suddenly became anxious and fearful in his heart. So, what about my teacher? Unfortunately, shortly after you fell unconscious last night, we received news that Professor Anton Cornell had shot himself at home. Fan Ming only felt a buzzing sound in his mind, with large streams of blood flowing into his cheeks, and various negative emotions surging, making it difficult to distinguish whether it came from himself or the original owner. Fear, shock, and extreme sadness and inability to accept. In the memory of the original owner, the mother's memory is ambiguous, and Professor Anton Cornell's position in his mind is second only to his father's existence. A good teacher, beneficial friend, elder especially after my father went missing, my own situation plummeted. Professor Anton is one of the few people who treats him as usual. Even in my subconscious thoughts, I would have sought his help as soon as I left here. Caroline, I apologize for your experience. Although the 2 police officers spoke words of comfort, the more emotional expression in their eyes was pity. Researching unknown artifacts, attempting taboo rituals, or encountering hidden villains, if nothing happens, one will either turn into a monster or eventually go crazy, and there will be hardly any survivors. It's just a matter of time. After continuing to inquire about some details, the police stood up. We have requested the Special Patrol Department to intervene and temporarily assume that you are the victim of such mysterious events, but the investigation has not yet ended. Please do not deviate from your original life trajectory for more than 24 hours, otherwise you will be treated as a fugitive. Fanning's brain was running rapidly, but his face was not very good. By slightly retrieving the original owner's memory, he understood why the police had that kind of gaze. Although technology and industry are flourishing in this era, the strangeness and mystery have never left people behind. I may take pills myself. Now that I can leave, should I try to seek protection or leave first? This group of police officers do not pay high attention to themselves and their attitude tends to be more routine. But behind the mysterious organization of the empire, the Special Patrol Hall, it seems to be a wise man who possesses some extraordinary power. Just now, after the release of the phone, Fan Ning was afraid that the matter of time travel would be discovered after the intervention of the Special Patrol Hall, and he was caught somewhere to study as a mouse. But the person has already died to the point where only oneself is left. If you choose between two, is life important or is it important to cover up the secret of time travel? It's not a matter of choosing between two, I have to do it myself. He decided to leave immediately and try to decipher the content of that mysterious text message. But you must first feign a normal reaction. Officer, you will protect my safety, won't you? Fan Ning spoke urgently. Our responsibility is to be responsible for the security of this city, protect residents from violent attacks, and sanction all kinds of criminals. However, this does not include some incomprehensible incidents. Caroline, it is really difficult for us to prevent you from stuffing yourself into the piano while practicing one day. This kind of conversation is useless but necessary. Sign here in the transcript, and then you can take the personal belongings that have fallen off the shelf at the door. Fanning took the pen and brushed it in Hoffman language, writing, Caroline Fanning, without any hesitation. Immediately bring the door to the room. The cold white light of the carbonized lamp still shone, and the clock in the hallway pointed toward 7:30 in the morning. Fanning naturally put on his hat and gloves, holding a redwood cane embedded with calcium iron garnet, walked through the corridor to the side of the police station hall, and then stared in front of the mirror for a long time. He is of medium height and has a slightly thin and immature body shape. He has a black old dress and pants, a cotton white shirt, a linen collar and cuffs, and a slightly wrinkled light-colored bow tie. The headgear played in the previous open class at the college. Under the black silk top hat, there is a young and handsome face, but the complexion is not very good, with black circles under the eyes and no blood on the lips. He took a deep breath and walked out of the hall. The sky was slightly brightening, and a cold wind blew in, making me shiver. The Tyrolean Empire was already located in the northern continent, and Ufransel was an industrial city in the northern part of the empire. The weather in late autumn was already particularly cold. The mist was heavy, without sunlight, and dense drizzle kept falling from the thick leaden gray clouds. Across the street, a few guys wearing faded and yellowed vests, smoking cigarettes, wearing high-brimmed hats, with their hands tucked into their sleeves, were pounding around a coin-operated gambling machine in front of the tavern. On the circular square on the right side, there is a huge billboard hanging on the steel bracket behind the knight sculpture. The blonde girl is wearing a white waist-tied skirt and elegantly smiles in the rain. The popular water blue lantern sleeves make her arms appear slender. Fanning stepped into the street, merging into the bustling hustle and bustle, passing by the gentleman in formal attire holding a cane, and walking side by side with the lady holding the powdered face of the puppy. The smell of perfume, soot, garbage, mixed with the intermittent smell of wood pomegranate oil from unknown alleys, haunted my nose. The movers carried fresh river food from the South Wharf area and unloaded it to various scattered destinations. The petite newsboy and flower girl emerged from the workers' figures, facing Fan Ning's expectant 4 eyes, and then plunged into the sea of people in a blink of an eye. The garbage trucks on the square impatiently honked their horns to urge them, but were covered by the steam roar of giant airships in the distance. Fan Ning suddenly felt difficulty breathing, and the noise in his ears gradually twisted into meaningless syllables, like riding a roller coaster, roaring past his mind and quickly driving away. He tried to hold back from distinguishing, but his mind seemed to become clearer and more uncontrollable, thinking and pondering the meaning of each syllable. His murmurs gradually turned into wild roars, and the things in front of him began to appear in a vortex-like illusion. Fan Ning crouched down and hugged his head, tightly closing his eyes. Come on, this must be a nightmare. I'm the only one left. When I go crazy or die completely, I'll wake up from Earth. Such thoughts flickered for a while, and he shook his head hard, stood up forcefully, supporting his cane and panting heavily. After the whispers and hallucinations slightly weakened, Fan Ning suppressed the discomfort and walked quickly towards the direction of the school. In just 10 minutes, he saw the school's red wall under the shade of trees, from the police security station at 212, Green Peacock Street in the neighborhood of Nei Linea to the University of San Linea at number 1. Caroline. When it was still more than 10 meters away from the south gate of the school, Fan Ning heard the girl's shout, which was not very clear in the cold wind. He followed the sound without stopping his steps. The girl in front of her was carrying a bag and wearing a large lavender court-style robe, which obviously didn't fit well. There was only a thin brown cake skirt inside. At this moment, the pretty face had no blood color, her eyes turned red, she pursed her lips tightly, and the wet hair ends over her shoulders curled up slightly, with raindrops on them. Hiran Konar, the daughter of Professor Anton Konar, is 16 years old and currently studying at the Women's Grammar School under the management of the University of Santa Linea to receive necessary primary cultural education. Due to the relationship between the original owner and Professor Anton, the two are very familiar. In the original owner's impression, Shilan played the violin, studied diligently, enjoyed history books, opera, and cold drinks. Her father-daughter relationship was very good, and although she was 5 years younger than herself, she had mature and independent views on things. When communicating and interacting with her, she always showed respect to her peers. Shilan, how are you? Fanning's voice was low. There seems to always be a sound in her ear. Shilan spoke softly, but her eyebrows furrowed tightly. Looking at the delicate but pale face of the young girl, Fan Ning's eyes showed a strong expression of concern. Although Shilan was not present at the last gathering to discuss the materials of the audio and video scraps, she inevitably had contact with that artifact on previous occasions. Caroline, you don't have to worry about me, the girl's fair wrist leaned into her shoulder bag. I have something for you from my dad. Put it in first. Fan Ning quickly reached out to stop her and then handed her shoulder bag to herself. He recalled the content of the mysterious text message, and the strange subtitles of 0 out of 100, in front of him lit up again. To survive, try to recreate the music from your memory in front of the audience as much as possible. There are many people here with mixed eyes. Come with me to the college piano room. The station is short, please keep reading. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Resonance and Keys. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Resonance and Keys. Fan Ning furrowed his brow, enduring the surreal whispers in his ear, and briskly walked through the campus. Shilan closely followed behind. A few minutes later, the two of them ran into a man walking out in front of the pure white and elegant arch of the Music Academy, dressed in a neat black dress and holding a scorebook. Hello, cousin Shilan. Oh, and Director Fanning. Fan Ning could tell from his smile that there was a hint of something wrong. My father has been missing for 3 years, and the Turner Art Museum has long closed down. Do you call me that now? Hello, Captain Cecil. I need to ask for your leave at the upcoming grade group meeting. Professor Anton Cornell has passed away and we have a lot of things to deal with. Fanning was too lazy to pay attention to these words, but he needed to ask Cecil for leave today. As a representative aristocratic public school, the University of St. Leonia places great emphasis on the cultivation of gentlemanly character, requiring students to strictly abide by discipline, value etiquette, pay attention to speech and behavior, and give students greater self-management authority. Between high and low grades, or between outstanding and ordinary, Ram Cecil is an outstanding 4th grade composer, manager, and grade leader. The original owner is clearly the managed. The art system in this world places more emphasis on inspiration than theory, and the position of music majors is already awkward. The vast majority of students come from the middle class who can barely enter the threshold and do not have the luxurious, money-burning performance or creative practice conditions of aristocratic families. Without exquisite instrument-playing skills, and unable to write any decent works. Upon hearing Fanning's request for leave, Cecil put a smile on his face and said, "I know. Helen is my cousin, and I feel even more regretful about Professor Anton's situation than you do. The group meeting will involve the selection competition for this year's graduation concert, so we shouldn't have approved your leave." Fan Ning suspected that there was something wrong with his ears when he heard this. Everyone is dying. Who has the mood to prepare for the graduation concert? Cecil saw that Fanning had not spoken for a moment, and changed his tone of concern to a serious one. "Well, this time you write a written note, and I will take it to the dean for approval. In fact, although you cannot produce any decent works, this is also a rare learning opportunity, but you can make your own arrangements and make your own decisions. Is it so troublesome?" Fan Ning's memory told him that the management authority of taking leave and attendance is in the hands of the team leader, but usually this kind of thing happens in the age group. Just say hello and report it. The dean wouldn't bother with these scattered matters, and vice deans or ordinary professors may not be able to handle them. Cecil looked at Sheeran again and said, "Cousin, if you have any difficulties, we will help you here. After the funeral, let's move out for a while. Coincidentally, my aunt hasn't seen you for a long time. By the way, don't you like the violin? I'm writing a symphony for my graduation concert, and I'll rehearse with you afterwards. It's always good to change your mood. The school will assign someone specifically to handle the funeral, thank you." Helen's response was very polite. Upon hearing the conversation between the two, Fan Ning's heart suddenly moved. The music of this world has reached the mature stage of romanticism, similar to the era of composers such as Chopin, Liszt, and Tchaikovsky who lived in the 19th century. The immortal works of those music masters from past lives are not available in this world. If one or two songs are borrowed in the work selection competition, it will be a blow to these students in terms of dimensionality reduction. On the other hand, does it not precisely confirm the approach prompted in that mysterious text message? So Fan Ning's mouth finally curved and said, "Leader, I understand the matter of the work selection competition. I won't trouble you anymore. I will attend the group meeting on time later. Thank you for reminding me. Caroline van Nistelrooy, thank you for your cooperation." Cecil's goodwill towards his cousin was met with a cold reception. Seeing Van Nistelrooy soften, his face relaxed slightly. Who knew Fan Ning would say the next sentence? "However, team leader, in fact, if one or two people can come to your family during the funeral, I should thank you on behalf of Shilan. Mr. Anton's family has long declined, and he is only a marginalized professor at school. Only the original owner, a student who also enjoys studying obscure ancient music, has close contact with him." Fan Ning was well aware of the motives behind the distant relative in front of him. Okay, this made Cecil have to repeat the word repeatedly for a while, and finally he threw down a sentence and turned to leave. "Now is the critical stage of my graduation concert creation, and I'm too lazy to pay attention to you. Fanning, if you don't want to regret it in the future, I advise you to act on your own. Everything is boring." Fan Ning ignored it and continued to move forward. "Caroline, I'm not afraid of him, but you don't need to confront him head-on," Sheeran rushed up and whispered. The position of grade group leader at the University of Santa Linia carries a high value and serves as a dual proof of family background and personal strength. Usually, the main position is selected from senior students and the deputy position is selected from junior students, with significant management authority over both the current and lower grades. "It's okay, Huron. As usual, I am reporting to him for leave to comply with the students' behavior norms and respect the school's team leader system. Since I have decided not to invite him later, I will be present on time." His current situation is indeed very unclear, and it should not be pointless to make enemies, but this opponent is not what he is standing up against now. He found in the emotions and memories of the original owner that Cecil's family had multiple counselors distributed in the local councils of Lenia, East Mechlin, and South Ferry. The Mechlin Free Museum is one of his family's cultural industries, but its reputation has been slightly lower than his own art museum for many years. After Fanning's father went missing, the museum successfully accelerated the closure of the Turner Gallery by excluding exhibition artists, intercepting audiences, making malicious comments and complaints, and interfering with the auction of collections. Moreover, some people have impure thoughts in their minds, and they have ulterior motives towards young girls, so they just criticize them when they need to. The two immediately walked into the music academy. Fan Ming took off his top hat and handed a cleaning paper to Shilan at the door. He also bent down to wipe away the dust and mud on his leather shoes. Holding on to the pristine handrail of the spiral staircase, I climbed up the second floor step by step, and the sounds of various instruments echoed in the corridor. I found a small piano room of 5 or 6 square meters, and the two of them sat in front of the piano. Fan Ming put on his top hat, leaned on his cane, and returned the shoulder bag to the girl next to him. Shilan covered her head with one hand, her face particularly unpleasant, but she still whispered her gratitude and took out a milky white envelope and a thick and large cowhide notebook from her bag. Teacher Anton's letter and research notes. Fanning looked at the milky white envelope in Huron's hand, which had the small words, "Dear Caroline Fanning," written on it. He is also familiar with this cowhide notebook, which always appears on Teacher Anton's piano score stand, office, or home desk to record composition manuscripts, research experiences, and important transcription materials. After he took them, he temporarily placed them next to the piano bench. Then he opened the piano cover and said, "Huron, I'll play a piece of music for you first." "Caroline, I feel uncomfortable." The girl sitting next to her had a painful expression on her face. She rested her hand on her smooth forehead and leaned down to the high notes of the piano. Fan Ming comforted by saying, "Wait a moment, it will get better soon." In fact, he also has no confidence in his heart. I also endured the discomfort of surreal whispers and placed my hand on the piano keys. He played a short, beautiful, and popular rondo from his past life. Beethoven's Dedicated to Alice. The beautiful theme with a half tone is played from the fingertips, simple and friendly, and the broken chords with alternating hands flow like water waves in the piano room. About halfway through the performance, Fanning was surprised to find that he seemed to have established some kind of inspirational connection with Sheeran. Like a peculiar invisible thread. No, not just one bundle, there are also more than 10 bundles passing through the surrounding walls, seemingly from other people who heard the sound of the piano, but even fainter. The nature of this silk thread seems not to be transmission or collection, but rather some kind of sharing or resonance. He felt that his category at a certain level of soul or spirit seemed to become stronger and more stable, and those illusory whispers became slightly inaudible. After the performance, the light golden subtitle in front of me, 0 out of 100, finally changed. There were many elusive characters floating in the surroundings. First +2, then a series of +0.1, +0. 1 +0.1. The final subtitle changed to 3/100. The chest is starting to heat up. Chest. Fan Ming reached out and pressed himself, feeling the sensation of being hit by a hard object, so he took out the thing that had been hanging inside. On the silver necklace hangs a blackened little key, with a rough relief resembling a spear carved on one side. The key to your own Turner Gallery. Fanning flipped over another side, and on the other side, there was a small vertical protrusion that looked more like the Arabic numeral 1. Every time my father goes on a long journey, he will keep the keys on his behalf and retrieve them when he returns. However, since the last parting, Fanning has never been able to remove it again. 3 years have passed, and due to being too familiar with the feeling of the skin, I often forget its existence. "By the way, Helan, how do you feel?" He snapped back to his senses. The girl sitting next to the piano looked at herself with her chin lifted, but her expression still looked very uncomfortable. After thinking for a moment, Fan Ning took off his necklace, took out a handkerchief to wipe it off, and handed it over. Shilan lowered her head and closed the necklace from the back of her neck, then threw the key into her chest. "It's a bit hot, well, I really feel a little better. This is strange. Shouldn't this key have been randomly matched by my father when the art museum opened more than 10 years ago?" Fanning felt that things were shrouded in a heavy fog, but at least there was a direction for exploration, and he was no longer so anxious. At least that SMS reminder is true. Playing it yourself is naturally a form of reproduction. +2 from Hillen, who has clear sound effects and listens attentively around her. And those +0.1 are other people who can't hear clearly from the partition or have intermittent attention. If the preliminary inference based on the number of people and effectiveness is correct in the preliminary round of the afternoon work selection competition, there will be at least a few hundred listeners in the auditorium. "Thank you, and by the way, your newly written piece sounds so good." Shilan thought that Fanning had been staring at him all along. The little girl blushed a bit and took the initiative to take off the necklace and return it to Fan Ning. Fan Ning smiled at her, then picked up the envelope left by teacher Anton and opened the crimson sealing wax on it. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Work Selection Competition. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Work Selection Competition. Fanning looked down at the palm-sized folded letter paper inside the envelope. After unfolding, it was only a small piece, with the handwriting written in light purple aniline ink. The teacher's letter should not contain much content. He first looked at the bottom signature time. November 8, 912 in the Gregorian calendar. Yesterday was the 22nd, today is the 23rd, written 2 weeks ago. To dear student Caroline Van Ning. I have been wanting to start writing this letter recently, and today I have finally made up my mind. Because my condition is really not good, to be honest, I can die at any time, but I don't know the specific time, so a few small things must be explained first. The symphony we are currently writing, you gave me a lot of advice and inspiration, thank you very much. It is definitely a disruptive factor. After my death, you can continue writing on your own. If you can complete it, you can participate in the work selection competition as your first symphony, and then premiere at the graduation concert, without having to rank at number 10 or declare that it is related to me. If you can achieve a successful premiere, or catch a glimpse of some insights that I haven't received before. Compared to those nobles, you started playing the piano too late. In my opinion, although you have talent, your basic skills are really worrying. Please visit Sir Vidalin at 43, Kaiserton Street in the Eastern District. I have already contacted him, but he will be out for a while soon. It would be safer to go back in December. Please take this seriously. Otherwise, whether you want to become a composer, conductor, pianist in the future, or just want to become a musicologist in school, this will become an obstacle to your artistic career. My manuscript and all related materials are in my notebook, and I will forward them to you by Torturon Konar. May your life be accompanied by music and sunshine. Your sincere teacher. Anton Cornell. May you spend your entire life with music and sunshine, Fan Ning said, feeling a little sore in her nose. This is the first time he feels that his memories are inseparable from those of the original owner. He repeated it several times. In fact, it was to encourage him to finish writing the first symphony before graduation, and to say what inspiration he might get after the premiere, and then introduce him to a piano teacher. I will do as you say, teacher, Fan Ning repeated the letter, silently reciting in her heart. Does this seem to be related to the selection competition for works at the school graduation concert, as well as the content of travel messages? It seems that I have to go to the afternoon group meeting. Fan Ning stuffed the letter paper back into the envelope, put it in his pocket, and then opened the thick and large notebook. On the light gray engraved writing paper on the first page, there are several large characters written as a simple cover. Symphony No __ in D major, with a blank in the middle. More than 2/3 of the page numbers at the end are all the manuscript of the general score. Fan Ning has not read it yet and skipped it directly. Going Forward Diary. Teacher Anton's Diary. The dates are intermittent, but all in recent months. August 11th. I bought an interesting antique at the Prudence auction house today. Some of the chord sequences recorded on these scrolls are stunning, while others are mysterious and unpredictable. Hey, no one raised the price at all. I only got it for £5. Those foolish nobles and capitalists only see sculptures and famous paintings as artworks. Where did Spencer Cecil get the recommendation message? August 12th. Good things come in pairs, and occasionally there are surprises in the old library of the school. Today, I discovered a book called Sound Flow, Texture, and Dreams, published in 892, which is not far from now. I just didn't expect that there would be someone who is so proficient in the Noah language this year. It took me a whole day to translate, but I didn't want to stop. August 20th. I'm so tired, I don't want to teach them tomorrow. August 28th. Why is this damn weather still so hot? I think my translation work should be done while soaking in the swimming pool. The great sun god, the flame that never falls, can you take a temporary rest? August 29th. I froze to death during today's rehearsal. The weather in Ufrancel is really intellectually disabled. I need to take a good hot shower when I go back. September 1st. My Symphony No. 9 in D minor has premiered, and I conducted it myself. My popularity is lower than the previous number, so my composition level may really be getting worse. Alas, I don't care about the sarcasm of those music critics, but many listeners leaving midway makes me want to cry. I can't help but feel sorry for the musicians who have been rehearsing hard. Caroline Van Ning sat in the first row, but why did he also cry so much later on? Is it because of my low popularity that you feel sad for me? September 12th. If only I had an airship. September 15th. Breakthroughs have been made in translation work and phonological research. The book, Sound Flow, Texture, and Dreams, records many methods of exploring musical inspiration in dreams, and I have sufficient confidence in the next symphony I am creating. September 18th. So, after mastering the dream control technique, one becomes a knowledgeable person. September 19th, Professor Zimmerman from the School of Music of the Kingdom of St. Janus wrote a letter, stating that he had learned about the premiere of my Symphony No. 9 in D minor and had also purchased the score I published. He provided many professional opinions in the letter, and although he expressed a positive conclusion in the end, I am truly ashamed. Those opinions are so fair and obvious, I should have discovered them myself long ago. If modifications can be made in advance, even for some parts, will the premiere result be different? I will write a good reply letter to thank him. September 20th. Zimmerman, this idiot. His musical ideas are so decayed that they resemble the old dung floating on the surface of the Puchol River. I don't think there is anything that needs to be modified in my Symphony No. 9 in D minor, although you may not understand, my era will eventually come. September 25th. On Sharon Cornell's birthday, we had a party at home with 5 or 6 students. Caroline Van Ning played the piano well today, but he mispronounced whenever praised. His basic skills are really frustrating. September 28th. I had another dream about the door, with all kinds of colors, deep red, pale white, black and gold, and various scenes. The doors of the wooden house, amusement park, and pet cage. When I woke up, I felt someone whispering behind the bedroom door. October 12th. The success rate of entering Qingmeng is getting higher and higher, and the feeling of knowing that I am dreaming is really wonderful. My control over dreams is becoming stronger and stronger, and I can even create characters and plots as I please. This experience is just as captivating as the creator. October 13th. To be honest, I often find the mysterious chords in the soundtrack fragments a bit terrifying, as they often appear in my dreams accompanied by some terrifying things. October 14th. I tried to write a short prelude using mysterious chord materials, and its color and sound effects were so charming. October 16th. Perhaps I shouldn't have entered Qingmeng so frequently. They have indeed brought unprecedented experiences and musical inspiration, but I have been constantly bedridden by nightmares lately, and my heart feels a lot of pressure. October 17th. That prelude score was burned by me, it shouldn't even exist. October 19th. In recent days, I have been rehearsing the great music master Giles' 8th Symphony. October 20th. Is this round chief a fool? October 30th. I don't have a chance anymore, I'm already old. My body has already been immersed in death in stages, sometimes with hair falling off, sometimes with loose teeth, and sometimes with a tendency to feel tired. I saw a portrait of someone who was 35 years old 7 years ago, which is completely different from someone who is now in their 40s. If I were 25 years old, I would become a wise person. Now. I have died many times already. Note 1, November 7th. Have I already stopped testing my dreams and understanding them? Why is it still unclear? November 9th, so this is the feeling after becoming a knowledgeable person. Under the surface of the world, there is such light, shadow, and color. November 10th. The painting on the living room wall seems to be blinking. November 14th. Today is a rare and thorough wake-up call. November 15th. How did they come out? The handwriting has become very messy by this point. November 19th. I got angry at Huron over a small matter, I really shouldn't have. November. The existence of the wise is definitely false. If it is true, then dreams may not be false. This logic should be very clear and concise. The last page of the diary. I regret it, shouldn't I? Shouldn't we pry into the world? Don't record your dreams. Don't try to test your dreams and control them. They will come out on their own. The two hurriedly separated, one rushing to the group meeting and the other cooperating with the school's funeral preparations. Fan Ning walked on campus, but the image in his mind lingered on the last page of his diary for a long time. He now only feels that this matter is truly mysterious, terrifying, and even somewhat absurd. The current known source of the matter lies in the phonetic fragments and mysterious book, Sound Flow, Texture, and Dreams, obtained by Professor Anton Konar. The professor followed a certain method discovered in his research, experienced the magical lucid dream, and began to explore the connection between this and becoming an informed person. Can it be said that I just recreated the music of my past life, which gave me a feeling of spiritual enhancement, and that mysterious subtitle progress, may ultimately point to this extraordinary path? In front of the winding cobblestone road, there is an open corridor outside the auditorium, with a golden leaf patterned hall gate that is half open and half closed. I didn't expect the registration team to be so long already. Fanning looked up at the stage. Today is the preliminary registration for the work selection competition. There are 2 rows in front of the long table, and everyone comes forward to collect the envelope exam questions, which are registered by the staff. But at this moment, the queue situation is too clearly divided, with one queue forming a long line and the other only having about 10 people. This is because there are 2 types of competition, corresponding to different colored envelopes for the exam questions. White envelope represents small solo or chamber music works, with a preliminary exam content of limited time composition. Applicants can go back after the meeting and submit their works on time tomorrow at the same time. Black envelope represents a large scale work that requires the participation of a symphony orchestra. The initial test content is improvisation, and the professor and judges will be scrutinizing it in front of everyone soon. At the annual graduation concert at the University of Santa Linia, everyone is particularly eager for their works to be adopted or to have the opportunity to perform on stage. This is related to the success rate of staying on campus after graduation and has a great impact on future artistic careers. At an imperial public school, one has a lifelong decent career and income security, or becomes a respected member of the family, or completes the consolidation and transition of social classes, or takes the first step towards becoming a well-known artist. However, the creation threshold for large-scale symphonic works is extremely high, and the difficulty level is not on the same level as that of small-scale works. Except for a few outstanding students from the composition and command departments of the third and fourth year of college, everyone is willing to pursue but unable to participate. Not to mention anything else, the initial improvisation was already very discouraging. On the spot, a music material was requested to be expanded, and most people couldn't even hold back 8 bars. Coming on stage was a public execution. This has caused a serious imbalance in the number of people queuing on both sides. Fan Ming walked towards the sparsely populated team and looked at the stack of black envelopes 6 or 7 meters away from him. "Caroline, are you standing in the wrong place?" Several students majoring in music leaned out of the long queue across from them, puzzled. More and more people are queuing up around Fan Ming, and there is a lot of discussion. Did I read it right? Caroline van Nistelrooy, is he from the composition or command department? Music majors, right. What's going on in this music major? Writing a sketch is about enough. Large symphonic works can only be performed with 1 spot per year, and a concert only lasts that long. Let's wait for the improvisation to come to an end. Perhaps I learned some advanced composition techniques from Professor Anton Cornell. Professor Cornell. His works when he was young were pretty good. Do you see anyone listening to his later works? I heard Professor Cornell committed suicide last night. Captain Cecil, who had just refused his leave, also turned around from the front of the team. Director Fanning, what kind of masterpiece are you going to write? He looked with great interest, with an imperceptible hint of contempt in his eyes. Note 1. Adapted from Montaigne's Random Thoughts. At the second shift today, a 3,700-character extended version is presented, thanks to Whoosh 222, Ashix, Xian Yuan, Wang Zuxian of Mafang Mountain, Fan Tian Zero Love You, Zhao Si, the leader of Demon Fairy Castle, Cuxing Painter, Big Bugua, the end number of the book Friend 7403, Kaiyun Fenglu, Hong Kong Reporter, the end number of the book Friend 1578, Aquarius 53, Small Butter Biscuits, I Want to Dig Potatoes, Are You Angry, and a QQ Reader's Reward. Seeking collection and follow. Up reading, end of this chapter. Chapter 5. Exam Questions, Part 1. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 5 Exam Questions, Part 1, Can you please be quiet? A tall and thin man wearing a black tailcoat and white gloves took a step from the front of the team. Although the voice was cold and deep, it immediately interrupted everyone's discussion about Fan Ning. This is Murik, the leader of the Grade 1 group at the Conservatory of Music, majoring in piano. The Music Academy divides students into 3 major groups in management. The first group consists of popular majors with a higher proportion of people, such as piano, vocal, and string music. The second group consists of wind and percussion, each with fewer members but multiple categories. Flute, clarinet, oboe, bassoon, horn, tuba, trumpet, trombone, timpani, and triangular iron. The numbers are not clear. The first 2 groups are both performance majors, while the third group includes musicology, composition, conductor, art management, etc. Ram Cecil, who had a face-to-face encounter with Fanning, was the leader of the third grade group and a top performer in the composition department. And the group leader, Murik, is recognized by the college as a piano genius and has made great achievements in the field of composition. In his sophomore year, he premiered his own creation of the first piano concerto at a New Year's concert. Although it was just a naive student style, it was rare for someone to achieve this in 10 years. Didn't you just name a large-scale work? As for your lack of composure, fewer people come to try their luck every year. Murik looked coldly around the crowd. Professors are coming soon, pay attention to your gentlemen and ladies' etiquette. The leader of the piano genius has great authority, and the crowd is temporarily quiet. Caroline Van Ning, do you also want to write large-scale orchestral works? Suddenly, a mellow and gentle voice came from behind Van Ning. Hello, Dean. Hello, Professor Gould. Dean, you came earlier. Including Van Ning, everyone saluted one after another. The tall old man in front of him was none other than the Dean of the St. Lenia Conservatory of Music, Burren Gould. He had black hair, a lively spirit, bright eyes, and often smiled. Yes, Dean, I want to write a symphony when I graduate, replied Fan Ning. Ha! Did I hear you right? Cecil muttered behind him, as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. Do you want to write a symphony at such a young age? With such difficulty, starting with 4 movements and a duration of at least 40 minutes, you need to be familiar with the functions and characteristics of all the instruments. Do you think he has the talent of Master Gillis? Even if you have this talent, following Professor Cornell would still lead you astray, wouldn't it? Even though the dean was present, whispers from behind could be heard again. Gould raised his hand to stop the discussion and immediately said to Fanning, "Symphony is not that simple, but I'm looking forward to it. Let's see your performance in the impromptu performance later." "Thank you," Fan Ning bowed. "Immediately, I will be able to confirm that mysterious text message again," he muttered to himself. "And you will eventually understand that Professor Anton Cornell is a great composer." The registration cue quickly arrived at Fanning. He picked up the top piece of the stacked envelope, which had a delicate and thick gray-black texture. It was written in a light font with the number 6, and the opening was sealed with white wax. "Write your name and information on the registration form, then walk off the stage and search for a seat. Caroline, here and here." In the dim light of the auditorium, where the lights were not fully lit, a boy in the back row with curly hair on his head, wearing a cotton shirt and a brand new dark vest, leaned out half of his body. Fan Ning squeezed out a smile, not too curved but sincere. "Calvin, you arrived very early today." "Fortunately, I queued up early." Galvin raised the white envelope in his hand. "You're too daring to play. I don't even hope to be selected when I write a piano sketch. You write a symphony. Oh my goodness, just thinking about the scene of improvising on stage, my hands start to tremble." This is Fan Ning's roommate in 1st and 2nd grade, with the same major. They have a good relationship on weekdays. St. Leonia University has long implemented a mandatory boarding system, with simple accommodation conditions, advocating the cultivation of a diligent and simple gentleman character. This system was optimized 10 years ago, limited to the first 2 years of boarding, and was also reformed along with the smooth admission channels for women. After Fanning sat down next to him, Calvin lowered his voice and said, "By the way, I heard about Professor Anton Cornell. Many people already know, and I think the obituary will be issued tomorrow morning." Fan Ning's voice was calm. "I express deep regret and sadness." Calvin clearly understands the relationship between Professor Fanning and Professor Anton. Even if he is not a music major, the vast majority of people have studied his courses such as A General History of Music in the Western Continent, Introduction to the Evolution of Performance Style, and Introduction to the Evolution of Composing Techniques. In the eyes of ordinary people, Professor Anton is rigid and knowledgeable, but I greatly admire his erudition and gentlemanly demeanor. I also want to see him off for the last time at the funeral. Thank you, Calvin. Fanning placed his top hat on his knee and stabilized his cane. I'm asking you, have you heard about how many classmates have had an accident? Of course I know. There are 2 people, right? I'm not sure about the other one, but Vulcan Harvey is from the piano department of our college. It's so scary. Do you think seeing something can force you to go against your physiological structure and crawl into the piano? Or is there some inexplicable external force? When it comes to this matter, Calvin is clearly quite frightened. Are they 2 people? Fan Ning asked again. There are two of them, both classmates from the same school. If there were anyone else involved in such a big matter, even if we didn't know the details, we couldn't have completely ignored the news. Fanning secretly wondered, so what happened to the two humanoid figures I saw on stage when I first crossed over? Aren't they dead people, or at least not the two classmates I communicated with after class? If there is such a possibility, his psychological burden will at least be lighter. To be precise, there are three, and there is also teacher Anton, added Calvin, as Fan Ning remained silent. By the way, Caroline, there seems to be rumors that their deaths are related in some way. Didn't you often discuss music with teacher Anton? Be careful lately. Immediately, he looked at Fanning with a worried expression on his face. Fan Ning let out a long sigh and wanted to talk about something else. Your cane looks valuable. Hey, what have you been busy with for over a month? I found a part-time job. Calvin was absent-minded, answering whatever came up. Oh. Where is it? How is the treatment? You can't imagine, it's amazing. 4 days a week, with easy work and only 3.4 hours a day. I can now earn a weekly salary of about £3.5, and if I do well in the future, it may even exceed £4 and £5. As a part-time student, it is enough to ensure my daily quality of life and even maintain decent social expenses. Hey, but the specific content is confidential, and I have signed an agreement with my employer. He said with a mysterious expression. Upon hearing this description, Fanning looked strange. Big brother, you probably started working in a certain kind of, I don't want to fight anymore, profession after thinking it through, right? At this moment, all the gas lamps on the walls around the auditorium were turned on, and 3 sets of branch-shaped chandeliers on the ceiling were lit up together. The latter used the latest electric lighting technology, with hundreds of complex crystal arrays complementing each other, giving the originally dim hall a magnificent effect. Fanning's gaze fell on the center of the stage lighting, on the 9-foot black Boethius piano. It's really an eye-catching behemoth, violent yet elegant, profound yet aggressive. It's extremely beautiful. Just like the Steinway piano on Blue Star. Regardless of their past or present lives, they are all tangible products that Fanning is most infatuated with, and none of them. With his fingertips swiping over the black envelope containing the exam questions, he had already begun to daydream about what the impromptu performance test would be and what he would pop up later. During the new book period, it is tentatively scheduled to be updated every day at 11:00 p.m. and 8:00 p.m. respectively, seeking collection and pursuing reading. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Exam Questions, Part 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Exam Questions, Part 2. Several elderly gentlemen dressed in exquisite black dresses walked slowly into the auditorium. All students stood up to salute until the teachers took their seats in the first row of the chairman's seat. Dean Gould walked towards the front side of the podium. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A mellow sound sounded, and the pickup effect of the carbon electrode microphone was not ideal, but the decibel was large enough. I think the most exciting and highly anticipated graduation season for me every June is the graduation concert. The history of St. Leonia University is not the oldest, only over 140 years ago. However, the Conservatory of Music has produced several world-class art masters and a large number of influential musicians. Let me think about it. Among the 3 representative figures of the Essentialist period, except for Master Gillis, the other 2 all emerged from here. Master Mayer premiered the First Symphony at the graduation concert of the college in 791, and Master Tarakani premiered the Fifth Piano Sonata at the graduation concert in 814. Furthermore, Master Nyman's First Piano Concerto, which premiered in 898, became the first peak of his romantic career. Leaving a work at the graduation concert at the University of St. Leonia, I believe it will be a lifelong honor for everyone. So, students competing for the selection of large-scale works, come on stage and start improvising. Accept the most fair evaluation from all the professors. Dean Gould's speech quickly came to an end, but the goal had been achieved, both captivating and waiting for everyone's attention. Indeed, not to mention all of them, but the fame of many music masters here began with their stunning debut at graduation concerts. The Empire conferred titles on outstanding artists, who, like scientists, are one of the highly respected groups. Whether it is a long-standing aristocrat or a rising business owner, they all yearn to be honored by a master's work and see it as a family honor. Life only lasts for 50 or 60 years, but art is eternal. The masters sleep underground, but every day around the world, they are commemorated, their music is played, and they seek inspiration and comfort in the spiritual world. The final outcome of this work selection competition is that 182 people will participate in the competition for small solo or chamber music works, and 22 people will compete for large works. Black envelope number 1, Roberta Mom, 4th grade composition department. The staff's voice rang out. A thin and tall man in a black dress stepped onto the stage, bowed, opened the envelope, took out the sheet of paper inside, and stared for a while. Play and show us the material in front of you, Mom, and then we can start. Dean Gould sat back in the main judge's seat and gently reminded. Mom finally regained his composure, nodded, expressed gratitude to the judges, and then walked towards the 9-foot black Boethius piano, taking off his gloves. He nervously extended his left hand and played a melody of only 4 bars in the mid to low range, in C major, all white keys, with a clear and calm listening experience, elegant and elegant, with 2 decorative notes. The distinct Kashinic style theme, as well as the beautiful sound of the piano, Fan Ning silently commented in his heart. Kashinic, born in the Holy Janus Kingdom of the Western Continent between 621.685 in the Gregorian calendar, was a representative music master of the late Middle Ages, around 430.700 in the Gregorian calendar. This period is similar to the Baroque period of Fanning's previous life, where music was either as solemn and sacred as a church, or as magnificent and elegant as a court, with a variety of gorgeous decorative sounds, mostly polyphonic music. The concepts of tonal music and polyphonic music are relative. The former can roughly view music composition as melody plus accompaniment, while the latter involves 2 or more independent melodic parts interweaving and developing in a staggered manner, creating a harmonious beauty of movement. In small works, there is a relatively clear boundary between the two, but in large works, it is usually a combination of the 2 methods. This first question is very difficult, someone whispered. How much better is the main melody improvised? How is this improvised? Said Cecil, the leader of the 3rd grade group. If I get this question, I will force it to be accompanied and improvise using the main tone music method, but that style may not be quite right. The head of the piano department, Murick, also fell silent. The melody developed forward through Mom's left hand, and in the 5th bar, his right hand added a new creative melody, while maintaining the original theme's clear and generous singing style, bringing a sense of rhythmic power and contrast. Even 2 out-of-tune transitions occurred midway, and the changing tones brought about differences in the color of the music. Fanning was a bit shocked. Improvised polyphonic music. Musicians in this world are much more powerful than they think. Why do they have such high inspiration and talent? Mom's performance style is relatively pure, in line with the characteristics of late medieval music, with some errors in mispronunciation and rhythm alignment. The music stopped at 24 bars, and Mom took out a handkerchief to wipe his sweat before bowing off the stage, indicating that he was very nervous. The time is indeed not long, over 40 seconds, and it does not end in a complete phrase or section, 16 or 32 bars, but it is already very rare. Many audience members, including several professors, showed approval in their eyes. The average score will be released soon, with a score of 16.5 and a maximum score of 20 in the first round of testing. These professors really like to score high. This score should be quite high, but it depends on the comparison later on, Fan Ning thought to himself. Perhaps the performance of the first Mom was very impressive, while the performance of the next few was average, with 15.0 points, 15.4 points, and 15.6 points. 5th place, Edward Meridge, 4th grade piano department. The next person on the 6th, Caroline van Nistelrooy, is preparing. The group leader sat on the piano bench and calmly opened the envelope. Then he smiled slightly and struck 6 bright and warm notes with his right hand in the high notes. 3 in 3 groups, should it be a rhythm of 3 beats or something like that? Although Fan Ning couldn't see the score, he also thought to himself, the material is a set of square and convoluted sound patterns. If you want to develop it beautifully, it depends on the improviser's subsequent harmony direction. The melody also needs to be adjusted, otherwise it will be too rigid. After presenting the materials, the piano genius left the keyboard with both hands, adjusted the distance of the piano stool, tried the feedback force of the pedal, and then played a powerful triple accompaniment with his left hand in the low range. The right hand immediately joined, and the uniform 6 notes were adjusted in varying lengths, forming a segmented rhythm that spanned bars, developing into a passionate and elegant waltz melody. It reminds me of the wonderful ball we attended last night. The melody is so beautiful, I didn't expect a simple main chord in D major to be so captivating. The 2 ladies in the audience were sincerely amazed. Including those listeners who are tasked with composing, although the topic has been opened, they are not in a hurry because the opportunity to watch talented performances is really rare. They refer to the music inspiration of the performers on stage while organizing their creative ideas. The mood eased slightly, and the music moved towards the middle interlude, transitioning to a parallel minor. The mood added a hint of gloom, and there were several more obvious tonal changes later, creating a meaningful and long-lasting contrast. Oh my God, his modulation is so natural and charming, it's still improvisational. I have to think about it for a while even when I write. First, he switched to a parallel modulation, right? What happened later? He seems to have changed his tone a few times. A female student from the music department whispered to Fan Ning. After B minor, from flat B minor to a minor and then to a major, the downward half-tone harmonies are improvised to prepare for the theme reproduction, which is very romantic and completely different from the seductive and cheap folk music. Fan Ning did not turn back and casually commented. How do you grow your ears? They're so powerful. In the past, Caroline could hear it, and Fanning on Earth could also hear it. Now I am Caroline Fanning, stronger, okay. Fanning hugged her chest and thought to herself. The main melody of the exam is reproduced under Murica's command, the music returns to elegance and grandeur, and finally the emotions gradually rise, ending in a magnificent and bright grand chord performance. Professors and listeners applauded warmly, expressing their full recognition of this improvisation performance. Score given. 17.9 points. Very high, but also well-deserved. With over 2 minutes of improvisation, Murik formed a well-organized 2-part form, surpassing the previous few in terms of completeness. The development techniques of the melody and the intermediate modulation techniques are all amazing. 6th place, Caroline van Ning, Department of Musicology. The crowd became eerie and silent, without any transition, even making people wonder if there was something wrong with their hearing. Everyone turned their heads and looked at Fan Ning sitting in the back seat. Including the professors in the first row. Secondly, I would like to express my gratitude to Ashix, Big Strawberry, Mr. Tchaikovsky, book friend ending in 4113, book friend ending in 0960, book friend ending in 7403, book friend ending in 0390, Orange Lover Xiaoxi, and Devil Angel for their tips. Mengxin kneels down to seek collection and follow. Up reading, end of this chapter. Chapter 7. Improvisation. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 7. Improvisation. Fanning stood up, moved out of his seat horizontally, and brushed past Murik who had just stepped off the stage. During the time when he bowed and walked towards the piano, he felt his gaze wrapped around him like sticky syrup, dragging along with his footsteps. Mysterious, curious, scrutinizing, waiting to see a joke, feeling like this is a cruel person. He opened the envelope and looked at the sheet music on the note paper, with standard 4/4 beats and scattered 6 notes. Immediately strike it on the piano for display. The bass zone rises by C and G, then up to a higher octave by C and E, and up to a higher octave by G and A. Note. In the notation of phonetic names, 1.do, 2.re, 3.me, 4.fa, 5.sol, 6.la, 7.11 correspond to C, D, E, F, G, A, B, spanning a wide range of voices. It is basically confirmed to be in C minor, but there is an additional 6th level A, Murichthe's thought. The style of improvisation still has a lot of freedom, but it's difficult to stand out. Another person commented. Fanning looked at the black and white keys of the piano in front of him, emitting warm and delicate colors. Above the central C key, the Boethius logo, carved in ancient Hoffman language, was full of dynamic beauty. Under the concentrated illumination of the crystal chandelier above his head, the audience and the remaining light squeezed together in darkness, and the field of view was too bright, even dizzy. The whispers in his ears seemed to appear faintly again. "Why hasn't he started playing yet?" asked the female companion next to Cecil. "I only found out what it feels like to be scared and foolish when I stepped on stage." Cecil smiled and shook his head repeatedly. "As a music major, I don't know what to do with the excitement. Just write a few research papers honestly. I am him and I will definitely regret it. This scene is too scary. Improvisation is like this without a sense of security," Cecil said with a superior tone. "For your performance department, it's like a piece of music that has never been practiced before suddenly being caught and performed, and only our composition professionals can control the scene." Several music professors, including Dean Gould, holding pens, also stared at Fanning in front of the piano. No musical detail can escape their sensitive ears. Taking a deep breath, Fanning finally lifted his left hand and struck a G rising octave double in the low range of the piano. A deep and metallic sound suddenly sounded in the auditorium. Dong! Undoubtedly the largest auditorium of our music academy, the sound absorption and echo effect is really great. So what? Murich, who had already achieved high scores, rested his hand on his neck and leisurely looked at the potholes on the surrounding walls. Is that all? Is this what he calls improvisation inspiration? Cecil and several composition students were all raising their hands and scratching their heads. You probably stopped this octave for 4 or 5 seconds, right? After maintaining this octave doublet for a full 2 bars, Fanning lifted his left hand again and quickly broke down the chords in the low range, creating a series of 6 connected notes. Dean Gould narrowed his eyes and stared intently at Fanning. Starting from the 5th bar, the right hand joins and plays a fast dot-paced melody, with grainy notes sparking and splashing out. It is precisely the great Polish Romantic music master of his past life, the masterpiece passed down by Frédéric Chopin. Fantasy improvisation in C minor. Chopin composed a total of 4 fantasy improvisations during his lifetime, which was written in 1834 at the age of 24. The author himself believes that the main melody of this song is somewhat similar to the theme of another work by French composer Moscheles. In order to avoid criticism, it became the only unpublished song and was only discovered by later generations after death. In fact, it has a richer content and a more elaborate structure than the one by Moscheles. In Fanning's past life, it was one of Chopin's most widely circulated and popular works, rich in poetic fantasy and containing rigorous logic, capable of triggering strong emotional resonance in the audience. On stage, in front of the piano, the young man in a black dress continues to run at high speed with his right hand, forming a complex interlacing rhythm with the ever-changing 6 connected notes in his left hand. It is like a waterfall full of fiery passion, pouring down thousands of miles, and also like an illusionary world overflowing with countless colorful lights, shadows, and color blocks. Fan Ning's expression was actually a bit nervous, staring intently at his running hands on the piano keyboard. He did not come from a formal background in his past life, and his original owner, Caroline, was only majoring in music. He was often ridiculed by teacher Anton for his basic skills, and even after the fusion of the two memories, he still couldn't compare to those piano performers. But he is too clear on how to use 50% of his finger skills to achieve 90% of the effect. This piece of music is an amateur level 10 exam track that Fan Ning played when he was a child in his past life. In terms of the technical difficulty of simply playing it, it is not difficult for professionals. But judging from Fanning's research on countless records and picky ears on site, there are not many professionals around who can play brilliantly. They have good finger function, completed in one go, with few mispronunciations, but overlook too many spectral details. The weak rise in the right hand at the beginning, the shaking pedal stepping method, the breathing between clauses, the emphasis lines that need to be highlighted, the contrast between strong and weak sections starting from the 13th bar, and the continuous strengthening of the first notes of the three semitones to bring a sense of compactness. Fan Ning believes that this is his best performance. These professors with good gentlemanly manners couldn't help but speak out. Even more exaggeratedly, including the dean, there were 3 judges with their hands on the table, their bodies trembling slightly and their excitement overflowing. It's impossible. Is this music so romantic and charming, full of poetry, and with mysterious inspiration improvised by him? It's impossible, I can't even write it, even if it's given me a month, no, a year. Murik, a piano major, sat in the front row of the side audience, his hands propped up on his knees, and his long body leaned forward. The profound and imaginative music is on one hand, and also on the other hand, speed. Vice Dean Su Ci, sitting on Gould's right side, pondered inwardly. Improvisers must constantly leave space for their brains while conceptualizing and expressing, even if it's just a few seconds, so the speed they choose is mostly not fast. And now, creating such a brilliant and fast sound stream, as well as a large number of applications of secondary and secondary high stacked chords, the impeccable off-key is enough to show that Caroline van Nistelrooy's music skills are proficient in his heart, tend to be instinctive, and inspiration reaches its peak. He stared at the tip of the steel pen in his hand for a long time, lost in thought. This is a master-level improvisation. I have no reason to deduct points. No, even if it's a written composition, I can't find a reason to deduct points. I have to give a score of 20. An associate professor heard it for about 40 seconds and without hesitation, drew his pen. There are some immature pedal treatments and the wrong dirty sounds, indicating that the basic skills are unstable, but he has grasped the key emotional points perfectly, which is due to talent. Dean Gould's eyes flickered. No. This is not the evaluation standard for performance exams, it is his own inspiration. How could I subconsciously regard this as a piano performance exam for a master's classic work? The dean shook his head and wrote down the score he felt should be given. In the hands of a young man in a black dress on stage, a crystal clear stream of colorful sound rushed down from the high notes, sweeping almost the entire keyboard, and finally turning into a few heavy hits in the low notes. The high-speed running stopped, and Fan Ning's left hand gently caressed the keyboard, bringing out a soothing string of D-flat major arpeggios. Then, a beautiful new melody was played by his right hand, which was as beautiful as a song. Under the rhythm of 3-2, the harmony of the left hand ripples with sparkling waves, while the bright and warm major melody of the right hand carries elegant decorative notes, like a butterfly in a flower, playfully running through. Transferred to the same tone. Surprisingly, there is a contrasting section. The audience was stunned. Several professors who had already given scores were stunned again and crossed out the scores they had already given with a pen. Cecil was just leisurely commenting, but now he is staring at Fanning with a gloomy gaze that is about to drip water. He is the leader of 3 groups and a top performer in the composition department. Originally, he was determined to have the opportunity to premiere a major work at this graduation concert, but ahead of him was a strong competitor from the piano department, Murik. As for Fanning, he didn't even care about it at all. Who knows, the number Cecil drew was a few places behind Fanning's. The more he waited, the more complex emotions he felt, such as irritability, anxiety, and disbelief. The hand that held his chin clenched tighter and tighter. Caroline Van Ning, he brought too many surprises today. Dean Gould spoke in a low voice, but was very excited. He turned to his left and asked, "Professor Brownie, do you know who Van Ning's piano teacher is? What about the professional course teacher?" The person being asked was Professor Lorraine Brownie, the first vice dean of the St. Leonia Conservatory of Music and the composer of Cecil. His expression was somewhat uncertain, and he did not immediately answer the dean, nor did he pick up the pen in his hand. "He probably doesn't have a dedicated piano teacher," said Vice Dean Schutz on Gould's right-hand side. "I've only seen him in the piano courses set by the college, and he's very close to his professional teacher, Professor Anton Cornell. Professor Cornell, who committed suicide yesterday." The dean frowned. The soothing andante in the middle came to an end, and the music under Fanning's fingertips returned to the fantastical world of the first paragraph, which was full of strange and varied sounds. Basically reproducing the first paragraph, but it doesn't sound boring at all. I even want to listen to it a few more times. This clip is so wonderful. This indicates that he had already carefully laid out the first improvisation. This is basically the reaction of the majority of the audience, and the whispers on stage have disappeared. Everyone is firmly attracted by the magic of music, listening quietly, as if enjoying a delicious but small portion of delicious food. At the end, Fan Ning's right hand showed a cool and fixed sound pattern, with a rapid change in color. On this basis, a lyrical slow melody is played in the left vocal part, and upon closer listening, the audience discovers that it actually comes from the singing theme in the middle section. That's amazing. The material in the middle section is reproduced, with the right hand switched to the left hand and the speed slowed down twice. This not only showcases the lyricism and singing to the audience once again, but also unifies the material of the entire song and condenses its logical structure, making it unforgettable. Sublimation, the only word I can think of is sublimation, which is the absolute finishing touch. Using two sets of quiet arpeggios as the ending, the auditorium is filled with warm and sunny sounds, as if a dream is over and returning to reality. He once again felt the peculiar connection he had established with his audience, this time with hundreds of bundles. And the feeling of resonance is stronger. +1, +1, +0.5, +0.5, +0.3, +0.3. A large number of numbers are merged into light golden subtitles from all directions, like water droplets merging into streams. The subtitles for 3 out of 100 rose rapidly, reaching 100/100 in an instant. A small symbol in the shape of a key popped up on the right, flashing and flickering. The numbers are still rising, but the speed is slowing down and finally stopping at 135/100. Fanning felt that something had risen and something had sunk. I don't know if it's something about spirit, inspiration, or soul, but the intensity has directly reached the bottleneck, and even there may still be room for improvement after breaking it. It's just a lack of some suitable activation method to make this essential change happen. So what is the activation method? The key. The key. Fan Ning had a moment of confusion, but then his body and mind were completely immersed in unprecedented comfort and relaxation. The key to his chest heated up again, and all kinds of negative feelings disappeared in this moment after crossing over. Then, he slowly lifted his hands from the keyboard, released the pedal, and ended the piano echo in the auditorium. A deathly silence. The silence in the auditorium lasted for more than half a minute. Pa. Dean Gould and Vice Dean Schutz stood up directly from their seats, slowly and forcefully clapping their hands, finally breaking the stagnant air in the auditorium. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Final score. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 8 Final score. The applause of the professors finally brought the audience to their senses, and thunderous applause and cheers erupted from the audience. Especially for the music majors located on the rear side. Their palms were slapped red and their voices were hoarse. Several girls stood up completely disregarding the elegant image of a lady, using their hands as horns and shouting loudly towards the stage. Caroline Van Ning. Great, good job. Calvin is the most exaggerated guy. He just stepped on the armrest of the seat, climbed up, and sat down on the backrest, vigorously waving his newly purchased black silk top hat, his throat howling. Music majors are really frustrated in their daily lives. Many people hold a biased belief that musicology lowers the admission threshold for music majors. Many outstanding performance students have been provided with excellent art education by their families since childhood, ensuring the purchase of top instruments and laying a solid foundation. As for those genius composers or conductors, they have a small band or even a whole symphony orchestra at home, so that he can practice his creations at any time and receive immediate feedback. These are all about burning money. And for students majoring in music, others have the impression that they are a group of people engaged in so-called theoretical research on music itself, wandering outside the mainstream performance and competition activities of the college. Only in defense situations can they read their own incomprehensible papers. Their presence is extremely low at the annual graduation concert. Unfortunately, he was still placed in the third group of his grade along with the composition and command departments, and was disciplined by outstanding individuals throughout his 4 years in college. And this time, Fan Ning's performance on stage made them completely proud. A more realistic point is that if Fanning's symphony is ultimately selected, the author has a considerable say in the choice of the musician who will premiere their work. They felt both excited for Fanning from the bottom of their hearts and for themselves. The applause continued unabated. Fan Ning, who finished bowing at the forefront of the stage, lifted his head and caught a glimpse of Ram Cecil, the team leader sitting in the first row on the side with a face as if he had eaten rat droppings. He remembered the morning when he was in danger and had important matters to attend to, but was denied leave. He thought to himself, "Captain Cecil, I was forced to open the business. Are you feeling comfortable now? Caroline Van Ning, thank you for bringing us this auditory feast." Dean Gould said, "What I want to ask is it really something you just created?" Fan Ning smiled and was about to speak. "I want to interrupt, sorry Dean, I've been holding it for a few minutes and I'm really excited." Vice Dean Su stood up and said, "Fanning, whether this work comes from your on-site inspiration or from previous ideas, as long as you organize it and submit it to the small-scale work selection, I will definitely make it appear in the graduation concert. Because it is a truly romantic musical masterpiece." "Alright, I'm done." Professor Zutz immediately sat down. Dean Gould smiled upon hearing the words and said, "Although it is customary for each student to perform at most one work, there seems to be no explicit rule that multiple works cannot be adopted at the same time." He then asked the other judges, "What do you think?" Professor Lorraine Brownie, the first vice dean and Cecil's music teacher, spoke in an old voice with a calm tone, "It depends on the comprehensive opinions of the various judges and the actual performance in the following rounds. Respected professors, just as I chose the black envelope, what I hope to bring to you at the graduation concert is a symphony." Fan Ning finally seized the opportunity to speak. "Fanning, we respect your choice, but please at least choose a name for today's piano piece," said the dean. "We don't want to hear it only this time. It should be played and appreciated frequently, right everyone?" Almost all the judges agreed, and even the audience nodded along. "It comes from some fantasies and inspirations from today's impromptu performance test, let's call it fantasy improvisation," Fan Ning said. Fantasy improvisation. Good name, by the way, we forgot to announce the scores. Gould laughed and said, "Caroline Vanning, your final average score is 18.8 points. It's too high, almost a whole point higher than Murik from the piano department. No one should be able to surpass it. The audience once again erupted in amazement. It is obvious that the vast majority of judges gave full or almost full marks, except for Professor Lorraine Brownie, the first vice dean, who responded coldly. But he couldn't push the score below the passing line against his will, so he created this final average result. In the initial 20-point ratio, Fan Ning has already gained a certain advantage. According to college tradition, the annual graduation concert will be held several weeks before the graduation ceremony in June, approximately in late May. In the afternoon, there is a chamber orchestra, and in the evening, there is a heavier symphony orchestra. Both performances feature student works in the first half and master works in the second half. Due to the limited duration of the concert, there are about 5 small works selected, with a nomination of about 15. However, only one large scale work was selected and 3 were nominated. Fan Ning put on his gloves and walked off the stage. "Caroline, do you have the score for Fantasy Improvisation?" "I want to practice it," a girl in a blue dress approached with a hint of shyness in her voice. "I want it too. I also want it. I'll practice immediately when I go back." "What are you waiting for? Let's rely on it to perform well at the family gathering next time. I want to use it to pursue the girls I like," the boys and girls around me chattered, including some students who usually look down on music and performance majors. This fully demonstrates that good music is the key to moving people. "Don't worry, everyone. After I go home and tidy up, I will share it with everyone," Fan Ning politely replied. "Caroline, will you include Fantasy Improvisation in your official work number and publish it?" "Fan Ning, who would you dedicate it to?" More and more people are gathered in the corridor of the audience seat on this side. Cough, cough. Fan Ning cleared her throat awkwardly. "Everyone, we will communicate later, and there are still students who need to be tested later." That's right, I'm really sorry. Everyone just woke up from a dream. The next test may be due to Fanning's previous performance causing too much shock and psychological pressure, and everyone's performance was mediocre, not even exceeding the score of the first mom. The group leader of the composition department, Cecil, has the number 17, which is relatively late. After taking the stage, he drew a set of 8 notes in a bass sequence and improvised a variation consisting of a theme and 3 fixed bass variations, achieving a score of 17.7.0.2 lower than the group leader of the piano department, Murik. If his number could be drawn before Fanning, or if he maintained a good mentality and did not make any mistakes during the performance, he should have been able to get second place. Cecil, who came down from the stage, sat in the audience seat and breathed for a long time before calming down. During this period, Vincent Van Ning flashed in front of him, who always had a haughty and constipated face, as well as the Turner Museum in East Mechlin. For over a decade, it always overshadowed its own Mechlin Freedom Museum in terms of exhibition popularity, art reviews, and event quality. Fortunately, 3 years ago, this annoying guy went missing while participating in the 39th Harvest Art Festival. Most likely, it is due to encountering some unexpected traffic accidents, public security accidents, or contracting some severe infectious disease during a foreign land, resulting in sudden death. He recalled this and breathed a sigh of relief. "My thoughts finally returned to the most important thing in front of me." Although he has high self-esteem, it is clear that he ranked 3rd in the initial test and fell behind by more than 1 point. Negative emotions are useless, and what needs to be prepared for next is the subsequent test. I am determined to have the opportunity to premiere the First Symphony. The work. Network. Influence. As expected in the second round of the interview, it is chamber music writing. I need to accept the evaluation of the entire Ufrancel music industry in the New Works Exhibition Hall of the City Concert Hall. I really want to see what you can compare to me. Thank you to Hanada Zero for your love, Haibajibwa, Kuxing Painter, and Xianyuan for their rewards. Ball Collection follow-up, end of this chapter. Chapter 9. Fragmented Phonetic Column. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 9 Fragmented Phonetic Column. Fan Ning has left early. He was worried that he would be surrounded by others later and didn't say hello to anyone, so he hurriedly left. The pocket watch points to 1 p.m. in the afternoon. It was really late enough. The relaxation brought by playing allows me, as I walk on the road, to finally have the scattered energy to feel this campus. He felt that the most direct experience was that his nose didn't suffer as much. These cities, which have rapidly expanded due to industrialization, have a construction speed far behind population growth, excessive overcrowding, and a lack of necessary sanitation facilities. The living environment of the middle class is extremely cramped, and industrial workers have no life at all. Even the wealthy cannot completely isolate their damp and crowded housing, as sewage rot in the city's ditches, intertwined with the stench and thick smoke from factories, eventually condensing in the haze and sucking into their lungs. On the campus of St. Leonia University, winding rivers, ponds, fountains, colonnades, sculptures, and flower stands can be seen everywhere. They combine the natural height differences of various plots to form a carefully planned garden-style layout. A landscape sketch composed of goldfish grass, autumn crabapple, and cherry trees exudes a sweet grassy aroma, while higher up are oak trees, camphor trees, and heavy birch trees that block out the sun. The red walls of the building can be seen from within, revealing classical elegance and composure. The rain had stopped, and on the pristine white bricks and lush grass, young men and women walked and chatted in groups of 3, occasionally whispering and laughing, which made Fan Ning feel a bit dazed. 4 or 5 months ago, I was also one of them. Okay, I'm back now. But from the moment I stepped out of the police station gate, the feeling of being both real and unreal still existed. He always felt that what he saw in his field of vision was a broad and cramped contradiction. The campus scenery, the colors of plants, and the faces of handsome men and beautiful women were all pleasing to the eye like bubbles. The friction between his skin and clothes brought an indelible feeling of being outside of things. Perhaps it is a sustained side effect brought about by time travel. Key. Fan Ning looked again at the flashing symbol on the right side of his eyes, 135 out of 100. Turner Gallery. That place has been closed for 3 years, is there anything special about it? Just now, go take a look. Stepping out of the school gate and walking along Green Peacock Street for a few minutes, Fan Ning finally felt hungry. He fumbled in his pocket and found 3 or 4 shillings, which belonged to the middle layer of the gold, silver, and copper currency system of the Korean Empire. Each gold pound could be exchanged for 20 shillings, and each shilling could be exchanged for 12 pence. Every small alley is a densely populated area of mobile vendors and stalls, with constant cries of coffee, lemonade, ginger beer, or pea soup being served to the hurried workers. A young man who looked like a company employee was walking on the road, with both hands peeling open the large sauce-colored bacon sausage. The red and white meat trembled with hot air, and the oil dripped into his mouth. Several textile workers who were resting during working hours stood on the side, looking at the stalls filled with salted eels and smoked herring, hesitating and holding their crumpled money bags. Fanning held a shilling and purchased coffee and fruit pies for 4 pence, then boarded a taxi from Linia to East Mechlin for 10 pence. They were 4 or 5 times more expensive than public box carriages, but won over the comfort and privacy of the environment. The carriage was getting further and further away from the clean and orderly campus, and eventually disappeared at the end of Green Peacock Street. Fan Ning opened teacher Anton's notebook, flipped through the manuscript and diary, and his gaze couldn't help but stop at the end of the diary. Don't record your dreams, let alone try to test and control them. Will they come out on their own? The teacher's original intention is either to seek inspiration to assist in creation or to become a knowledgeable person. As a result, he was plagued by fragments of sound sequences and mysterious chords, or perhaps his method of recording dreams and experiencing clear dreams itself had problems, his mental state plummeted, and he even encountered something indescribable. Thinking about it, Fan Ning suddenly changed his expression and reached into his coat pocket. He reached out for his other slapped notebook. On October 14, I dreamt of walking in a corridor similar to an exhibition hall, with dim lighting and clean floors. There are even hollows on both sides of the walls, and illogical and peculiar objects are displayed inside the glass partition. There are banana fresh keeping boxes made of pure white marble, giant teeth supported by spring brackets, hard-shelled insects with bright red wings, golden plaster models, and surveying instruments covered with gears and pipeline hubs. At the end of the corridor, there are some things on the wall, and I am always occupied by other thoughts as I approach the end, then drifted into other dreams. On October 15, I dreamt of running on a rainy night, chasing after my art museum key. It was picked up by a stray cat on the roadside, and I got stuck in street graffiti painted on the road while running. I fell into the vast ocean, feeling the despair of drowning, but inspired to remind me to recite what characters can float on the water. On November 16, I dreamt of jumping out of the soon-to-collapse castle window and falling into a pond covered in misty flowers and plants. The fruits grew from within and were as clear as sapphires. I picked one and nibbled on it, with a strong and sweet taste. I saw some unfamiliar language on the plant's roots and stems, but I understood it. There was another place below the pond, and I crawled into it to see the ceiling of my bedroom. On November 20, I dreamt of walking in a corridor-like place again. Fan Ning was reading some bizarre dreams that the original owner had recorded. He had a dream notebook in one hand and a warning from Professor Anton Cornell at the end of his diary, "Don't record dreams. The original owner is making a big death." Fan Ning's face is very ugly. And does this frequently occurring dream of walking in the hallway have any special meaning? Fan Ning flipped through his diary and then, looking back, he saw a staff sheet paper printed with woodblock writing paper, covered in a dense collection of handwritten notes. This is the handwritten manuscript of the teacher's audio series. As for the original documents that were previously studied, it was said by Shilan that they have been sealed as prohibited items by the Special Inspection Agency. This manuscript consists of 11 evenly distributed chords with the same numbering as the original volume. Melody and chord can be roughly regarded as two relative concepts. The organic combination of notes of different lengths and pitches over a period of time forms a melody. If multiple notes are pronounced simultaneously and two notes are pronounced simultaneously, it is called a chord, and three or more notes are pronounced simultaneously, it is called a chord. The fragments of the sound sequence in front of me are all groups of 5 to 7 notes, and the large chords that sound simultaneously need to be pressed together with both hands to play. They do not indicate the rhythm. If you want to hear the effect forcefully, just play down in groups, with your own speed. At this moment, Fanning naturally didn't have a piano at hand, but it didn't prevent him from thinking about their rough colors in his mind. Fan Ning scrutinized at a fast pace, staring at each page for a moment, jumping to read some fragments, and then flipping to the next page. After about 20 minutes, he went through the complete 11 audio series fragments. "That's interesting." Fan Ning on the carriage showed a strange smile. There is a memory of the original owner, who thought it was a mysterious and difficult to understand ancient object, but now he knows all of it himself. Because this is the harmonic skeleton hint of previous classical music works. 11 sheets and 11 songs, all of them. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Exploration of Art Museums. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Exploration of Art Museums. Fanning finally understood at this moment. Why do people in this world want to break their minds and not come up with any ideas, only thinking that it is a very pleasant music material? Including Professor Anton, as well as the original owner before his travels. Just like pop songs, only by listening to a piece of music many times can one achieve even without listening to the melody. As long as a few chords are played in the prelude, they can immediately reflect it. Their previous research methods indeed only regarded them as music materials, partially cutting, disassembling, and assembling them to assist their own creations. But as stated in the professor's diary, these sound sequences are mixed with another part of mysterious chords, and the color effect may be somewhat eerie. He still remembers the teacher's previous advice. This kind of mysterious chord cannot be played casually. To roughly test its listening experience, it is also necessary to mix a lot of other materials or not step on the sustain pedal to prevent the sound from resonating together. For example, Fanning reads out one of the groups. C, rising F, B, high octave E, high octave A, higher octave D. The notes in this chord are mostly stacked in a pure fourth or an increased fourth, which is completely different from the conventional third construction of chords. Fanning can probably imagine its sound effect. The colors are cold, vague, with a hint of eerie. Even if Professor Anton has not heard of these classical music works, he can still find their abrupt features, but he cannot understand why they are so he works hard to study them. And for Fanning, this would not interfere with him even more. He closed his eyes, leaned the back of his head against the wall, lost in thought. Beethoven's Sonata of the Tempest. Chopin's Black Key Etude. Tchaikovsky's Fourth Symphony. Fanning kept pondering the titles and auditory memories of these 11 works in his mind, but never found any special meaning. The sound of the carriage continued to ring. When he opened his eyes again, Fanning looked at the densely packed notes and finally caught a hint of something. These 11 fragments of the music series are all recorded in the simplest key, which is C major or a minor, with all white keys on the piano. But the 11 works hidden behind them must have different tones. It's equivalent to when they were recorded as remnants of a phonetic sequence, they were uniformly moved to the simplest tone. Similar to when singing KTV, the original song is either keyed up or keyed down, all of which become the same key. Why? Intentionally erasing the tonal differences between them. Tone Fanning's eyes flickered as he took out a small notebook from his inner pocket and unscrewed the pen cap. He rewrote it. First sheet. Beethoven's Piano Sonata No. 17, Tempest, in D minor. Second sheet. Beethoven's Piano Sonata No. 21, Dawn, in C major. Third sheet. Bach's Variations on Gothenburg in G major. Fourth sheet. Schubert's Piano Sonata No. 21 in B-flat major. Fifth sheet. Mozart's Clarinet Concerto in A major Chapter 6. Liszt Sonata in B minor Chapter 7. Shostakovich's Ninth Symphony in E-flat major Chapter 8. Chopin's Black Key Etude in G-flat major Chapter 9. Mendelssohn's Violin Concerto in E minor Chapter 10. Tchaikovsky's Fourth Symphony in F minor Chapter 11. Chopin's Polish Dance in a flat major, I understand. There are only 12 different sound names in the world, which are the 7 white keys and 5 black keys of a piano. The 11 works correspond to 11 different tones. The only thing missing is, up C. It's just a half tone do. Missing, upgrade to C. So what? Lenwan Avenue in East Mechlin is here, sir. The voice of the coachman interrupted Fanning's thoughts. Chi-la, chi-la, chi-la. Fanning tore the paper into pieces, kneaded it into a ball, and got off the car. 115, Renwan Avenue, this small simple townhouse is his current residence. The house is not far from the art museum and was once used to provide accommodation for 4.5 museum staff. The air was damp and cold, and the wrought iron patterns on the handrails of the stairs were greasy, gray, and black. Fanning climbed the stairs step by step, passed through the yellowed posters posted on them, and opened the door. It has a living room, a simple kitchen, and an underground storage room. There are 2 small bedrooms upstairs, and a separate bathroom. Although the space is not large, it is more than enough for one person to live today. More importantly, in this era where many middle-class people need to rent, it belongs entirely to Fanning. The current market valuation is around £500 to £600. Fan Ming opened the money bank on the second floor, added a few shillings to his pocket, and then changed into an old but more agile brown windbreaker. Finally, he thought for a moment and put on a butter candle and a small box of yellow phosphorus matches. After completing the preparation work, set off on a walk to the Turner Museum of Art. He walked through the row apartments in this area, passed through a dilapidated alleyway, and arrived at the street of Leyte, which runs parallel to Renwan Avenue. This area is the busiest part of the East Mechlin district, with a constant flow of carriages and cars, and crowds weaving through it. Go further east and pass by a bright and tidy cafe, then turn inward at the animal sculpture. A narrow downhill alley, more than 300 meters away, he saw the gate of the courtyard and the 3-story large building inside. The deeper the alley, the darker the light. The iron fence in the yard has already rusted and mottled, and the iron door is unlocked, weakly concealed. Fan Ming reached out and pulled out the annoying creaking sound, then stepped in. In this city where industrial waste gas, acid rain, and dust are scattered, everything is being eroded at a double rate. Underneath were uneven stone bricks, clusters of unknown withered yellow weeds sprouting from the gaps and forming a desolate and collapsed shape. In the corner of the yard, there were also piles of messy old things piled up. The art museum in front of him no longer had the colors he remembered. Under the gloomy and dark sky, the building walls presented a strong gray-black color, and the elliptical windows folded in narrow arches on the first floor were all tightly locked. He walked up the steps, removed the dusty and greasy suspension notice rack, leaned his chest upwards, and opened the heavy brass lock with the key hanging around his neck. The decaying musty smell mixed with dust spread all over. The empty guide hall had only one reception table with no visible color. Following his memory, Fan Ming found an empty lantern behind the table, poured out dust, replaced it with a butter candle in his pocket, and lit it with a yellow phosphorus match. Then he closed the door and locked it. The air here is full of decaying mold and dust, but there is no shortness of breath. The ventilation openings inside the entire building should still be operating normally. It is the absolute silence of hearing and the extreme darkness of vision. In addition to the faint light from the lamp in my hand, I was given a visible distance of a few meters. Fanning felt that this space became increasingly unfamiliar and unreal. He suddenly felt a little scared and instinctively wanted to turn around and open the door, letting in the limited light outside. But after a moment of rational hesitation, being cautious, I gave up on this idea. There is no water supply or lighting here anymore. In such a large area and upstairs, even if there is some light source at the entrance, what's the point? Moreover, it is mainly unsafe to keep the door open. After calming down for a moment, Fan Ming in the dimness began to search for the memories of the original owner 2 or 3 years ago. After a while, he suddenly frowned. Amidst various complex discomforting odors, there seems to be a faint putrid odor mixed in. Dead mice. A long neglected bathroom drain. Still, don't scare yourself. Fan Ming calmed down, took a step forward with the lantern, and prepared to go to the mobile exhibition hall on the first floor to take a look. Thank you for the rewards from Big Strawberry, 3 yuan, Colorful Cloud Charm, Orange Lover Xiaoxi, and Book Friends ending in numbers 7328, 7481, and 1965. The trial water push station has reached its end, and it will be pushed on the Mayday website and app. Ball collection and follow. Up, thank you. End of this chapter.